Hello and welcome, everybody. This is the Power Masterclass. Today, we're going to adventure into the whole universe of power contracts and power archetypes. And what that looks like is we're going to be defining some power basics and having some context around that. We will be taking an alchemical journey. Okay, maybe we might even be taking more than one alchemical journey. Let's see how it goes. No guarantees, but at least one. We have an awesome treat. My very dear friend, Stephanie Beebe, the founder of Inflow CEO, is here with us today so that I can unveil. Yeah, there's going to be some unveiling. One of her power archetypes in real time. And all that along with a discussion that will allow you to make connections about your own archetypes and your own power contract. My intention for you is that when you leave this experience today, you will do so with greater confidence, greater capability, and trust around your relationship with, yes, power. And that you'll also have a shift of some kind in belief, in approach, in action, and ultimately in your outcomes around your power. So that's what we're here for. It's going to be magnificent. Before we launch into that, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. I'm Dena Crowder. I'm a creator and strategist who speaks, writes, teaches, and collaborates on power. I work creatively with innovators on their solutions, on bringing their brilliance into the world. And my unique body of work is called Star Power. It is a precise system honed over many, many years that is all about you sharing your brilliance with the world and using your power for good. People seek me out when they're ready to up-level, when they're ready to up-level their position, or because they want to sustain an already existing influence or influential position without selling out, burning out, or turning to the dark side. My clients are everyone. Anyone who is an upstart, who knows that they have a higher calling with power. And many of my clients have included Grammy winners, Emmy winners, Humanities Prize winners, heroes, Oprah guests, founders, award-winning writers, and educators. As I said, anybody who knows that they have a higher calling. So I'm really welcomed to, I am welcomed. Yes, I am. I think I said that backwards, but correctly. I am welcomed and honored to welcome you here today. It's going to be very special. Let's all take a breath because as I was reading the forms and the questions that many of you filled out around your archetypes and where you are with power, I noted some themes. Therefore, I'd like to say, for the record, that you are in the right place if you'd like to receive some relief, some clarity, or a bit of both. You are welcome to say amen, hallelujah, to clap fingers, or whatever. Snap, clap, because there was some heaviness with some of you, questions, doubts, like how do I around whatever's going on with you using your power for good or getting in more position or having more momentum. There was some confusion for some, even frustration about why you're in this position over here and not that one over there. Another thing that was present when I attuned to this whole field that we're in as a group collectively right now is about tolerance and intolerance. So some of you are feeling intolerant, as in I can no longer tolerate a situation or dynamic that I have previously been tolerating. So this is a moment of crossroads, of transition, and of change. If any of those things relate to you, as I said, I know you can give me the thumbs up, amen, all of that. Yeah, I see you. Because that's what we're here to do. Connect to and align with your version of source, of highest authority. However you do that, however you envision that. Perhaps you can imagine that there is an altar in this high holy place that represents your understanding of source, your understanding of highest authority or God, however you see it. And in this place, this holy place with this altar, you are going to offer. And offer it physically, like you're putting something down. You're going to offer any frustration that you have had in the past or that is currently still there about power, about your contract with power, about your position right now. Any of the things that I said, any of those questions that are going like, oh, I'm frustrated. Why am I here and not there? How do I get to do this? Why isn't that happening? Any of that, or any heaviness. We want to offer that. Fear, frustration, confusion. Maybe for those of us who are in the no longer tolerating scenario, what you can offer is the thing that you're no longer tolerating. Maybe you've been in a dynamic that has been somewhat one-sided or even abusive. And if that's the case, definitely, if you're ready, offer that. Once that's laid on the altar, you're going to now offer your desire. What is it that you want? What is it that you, in your heart, in your soul, be honest here. Don't pick the thing that sounds for public consumption, sanitize. Pick the thing that you really want. I am not going to check out your notebook. So whatever you really desire, offer that on the altar. As a gift. And lastly, your devotion, your intention for being here today. What is it that you are dedicating your time and presence, your energy here to today? I call that your devotion. For some of you, it will occur like intention. Let's place that on the altar as well. And when you're ready, take 3 breaths to make your transition. Open your eyes, come on back. And I want to give some love. I want to say hi to a couple of you.
What brought me here today was I've been hearing a lot about archetypes, and I have this very strong desire to get in touch with some of mine. And so I was drawn here to this. My devotion today is to allow the light in.
I would like to have a real understanding of my power so that I can really hone in on it. I feel like I'm like all over the place. I have a lot of different things I'm interested in and want to do. And I'd love to have just like a real understanding where that power is. That way more can get created.
Beautiful. Love it. Okay, going once. Thank you. Going twice.
I'll introduce myself.
All right.
I'm Jamie, and right now I'm in Sedona. I live in LA, and my devotion is simplicity. Oftentimes, like, I want the wedding cake and the 4th of July fireworks, and I want like the, Cinderella ball and all this, but really when it comes down to what I desire on a deep level and where my power lies is in this like beauty, like simple beauty, like my simplicity. And I feel like today is what I really want to connect more into that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's really beautiful because the ego is really tricky and it creates delightful fantasies that we think, oh, that's what I want. And then when things don't line up that way, we're always disappointed, right? We live in a state of perpetual disappointment, almost there, but never not quite. And you know what that does is that leaves us, in terms of archetypes, living from the place of the victim. Because the victim feels powerless. The victim, as an archetype, feels that he or she is disconnected from the source of power and from the capacity to wield power or to influence. And one of the things that all of the life can be perfect kind of ads that we have in our culture, whether it's commercially, if you get this car, your life can be perfect. If you lose this weight, your life can be perfect. Get this makeup. But even in the spiritual world too, across religions, and certainly in a lot of the new age kind of things, we have an advertisement called Your Perfect Life. You guys can relate to this, yes? Yeah? And who here has lived up to your perfect life? I want you to raise your hand because I really want to. I've never met anyone, not one time, who has lived up to that big ad of your perfect life. And what we do is so damaging to ourselves when we attempt to live into this external picture and expectation. It doesn't mean that we cannot have a perfectly aligned, fulfilled, conscious life that is really beautiful, as you said, full of beauty and full of service and full of power too. But the idea that we'll never have any challenges is keeps us in that victim archetype. Is what I'm saying making sense? I didn't plan on talking about it, but there it was to say. So, all right. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, we're going to move on. I'm going to talk about POWER because we are here today to talk about revolutionizing our concept of and practice of power, which leads us to, well, what is it anyway? Power is about direct influence, and in our culture, we often think of power as dominator versus dominated. It's about force, it's about power over. But we're not going to be talking about that kind of power today. We're talking about pure power, which is the capacity for influence, but through the lens of wisdom and compassion. That's the difference. You're still influencing. You're influencing yourself. You're in a co-creative relationship with Source, with the universe. There is a mutuality of relationship. There is influence happening both ways. And it's happening through the lens of wisdom and compassion. Okay. All right, so that's pure power. And that leads us to the thing. Each of us has a thing, and it's how our brilliance shines. We all know about this because we see people doing their thing, and we recognize that they are in their zone of genius, that their mojo's happening, and they're living their contract with power. When we see Oprah interviewing, just a killer interview, Miles Davis playing jazz on Kind Blue, Franklin Delano Roosevelt doing his fireside chats during the Depression and uplifting people's spirits and souls, giving them hope. These are examples of people in their zone and also fulfilling what I call their agreement with life. Some of you here know or have heard me speak about my longtime friend and client, Susan Burton, who is the founder of A New Way of Life. I'm mentioning her because this year, in fact, just maybe a month ago, her book called Becoming Miss Burton won the NAACP Book Award of the Year for nonfiction. She's a social justice advocate focusing on women in prison, formerly incarcerated women, and giving them a new way of life. And when you see her, when you read her book, when you really look into how she's interacting in the world, it's really clear that she's fulfilling her contract with power. Take a breath. I have something to tell you. I want to stress that this contract with power and this agreement is not just for famous people. No, everyone, from someone we would consider the most humble to a person we would consider to be in a very highly placed position. Everyone comes to the planet with an agreement with life, an agreement with power. And here's a hint, because what we're going to do after this hint is go into one of those alchemical journeys I promised. Hint, your life's experiences, including your wounds, yes, including the hard knocks, all of these have been exquisitely designed to develop and refine you so that you can clearly see and embody that agreement. Now, what happens, believe me, I know what happens is that often those wounds or those hard knocks, they act as barriers to that development because we don't realize, as one of my clients says, it's past the sell-by date on those. It's time for the wisdom to come out of the hard knocks, the quote-unquote mistakes, the disappointments, the pain. We mentioned the victim earlier, and I'm drawn to talking about this because I received about 25 forms where people filled out questions about their own archetypes and what was happening with power. And out of those 25, because I wanted to research before this group what was really going on for people, I would say 22 of them listed victim. That was stunning for me. Very consistent. It meant that this underlying either fear of or experience of powerlessness is really present. Which brings me back to the hard knocks and the disappointments and the mistakes, that it becomes time for us to heal them, transform them, so that we can get the wisdom. But we can't heal and transform them until we fully own them. Envision now that there are rings the color of sapphire blue beginning on the ground, wherever you are. If you are inside a room, they will be on your floor where you would walk. If you're outside, they'd be on the earth. And these rings, these sapphire rings, are in circles, and they start at the ground and they move up like a spiral. They're encircling you. This is the demarcation of sacred space, and it lets us know, and it lets the universe know, the spiritual realm know, that we are protected. We're in sacred space. We're in, think of it like a sacred temple. You are seeing those rings around yourself, but you're also knowing that even though we are virtual, those same rings are around all of us, this spiritual or astral energetic space we're sharing. Wonderful. Take 3 nice, slow, deep breaths. As you're doing that, I want you to know that we are making connection with what I call your star team and your soul. Now, for some of you, this may occur like a team of guidance. For others of you, it may occur like the Holy Spirit. But I'm using my vocabulary that's going to be accessible to everyone. And then if you need to translate that, that's fine. But we are now asking for assistance from your star team, from your soul, and from the realms of higher power with wisdom. Usually, we would be seated, we would have eyes closed, and we would do a traditional meditation, but that is not what we are going to do today. In fact, you're going to stand up. Find enough space in your area where you're not going to bump into a piece of furniture, your pet, or someone else and send them flying. When you found a place to stand, you are going to give permission for all the energy about power, whatever that energy is right now, to come up. Any thoughts, any energy, any emotions about your contract with power, that agreement I've talked about, any blindness, whether conscious or unconscious, real or imagined, any generational curses against stepping in to your power more fully, being more visible, or any generational curses around being in power, but always having to be stressed out and always having to be tense and always having to defend your position, because God knows when you wear the crown, somebody's always coming up behind you to chop off your head. Any energy about karma, any heaviness around that, any confusion, misunderstandings about your own power, about power itself, maybe energy around abuses of power, misuse, fears that you have about your own or about being on the wrong side of power, being a victim, getting abused by people who are powerful. Any attempts to avoid clarity, unconscious attachments to avoiding contact with power. All of this energy, whatever applies to you, is bubbling up. As that energy bubbles up, what you usually do is maybe brace against it, sidestep it, freeze, run away, fight, flight, freeze, or faint. But instead, we're going to do something counterintuitive. We're going to lean right into it. So lean right into it. Actually lean your body forward so that all of this energy, whatever it is for you that's swirling, you're going to lean into it and allow it. You're going to give permission for it to move. Instead of pushing it aside or stuffing it in a box or whatever you usually do, you're going to lean in and say, okay, lid's off the box. Let's let this energy move. It begins to move. As it does so, it begins to move you. Don't move your body from your mind or from habit. Let an impulse begin to move you from the overflow of this energy. Have trust and faith that this is a safe container and place for you to let this energy liberate. When your body begins to move, when it begins to have this impulse, go with it. Whether it's a toe, a foot, a hip, an arm, the movement will probably be slow. But it may get faster, it may stay slow, it may gain momentum, but you're going to feel that all this energy is starting to move you, and that you are in the center of it. If fears come up, just go right into the center of it. The goal here is to lean more and more into the center of the intensity that you might ordinarily sidestep. The more you step into the intensity, the more the energy is moving through you, the more you recognize and experience that this energy doesn't need to be labeled, and in fact doesn't want to be labeled, that it's not bad, it's not negative, it's simply energy. It is raw fuel. It is the very power of the universe. It begins to build as you let this happen, as you permit and allow yourself to be in the intensity of the energy. Something magical begins to happen, which is that the energy begins to feel at some point pleasurable. You may not be there yet, that's okay. But at some point, it begins to feel pleasurable. It begins to feel like an ecstatic kind of current that's running through you. So begin to let that happen. Becomes pleasurable. And now it's pulsating. The energy is pulsating within you. You are in the center of it. It is now moving freely through all aspects of your being. It is pure pleasure, pure ecstasy. It is liberated. And you notice that above your head, there is a star. It is golden. And it is dripping golden nectar, drop by drop, into the crown of your head. The golden nectar enters through the crown, moves down through the throat, and begins dripping into the heart, which allows the heart to open like a lotus. There is relief, there's rest, there's safety, there's trust. You are open and safe, you are closed and sure. And in this moment, you lean in just 10% more. And then you lean in 20% more to a place of trust and peace and appreciation where your power is concerned. Another way to think of it is this. You can phrase it this way. If I were able to let go of any of my usual habits that prevent me from leaning in, and if in doing that, I was able to lean 20% more into clarity, into trust, into relief, and into peace around my contract with power, what I am aware of, what I recognize, what I feel and know is. I will say that again. If I were able to let go of my usual habits and lean in just 20% more to clarity and trust, safety, and permission around power and my agreement with life, what I know, recognize, and feel is whatever you're receiving. You want to take a moment to come back fully into your body, to open your eyes, and to write it down, because this is vital information about your agreement with life, about power. This is what you really can know and recognize and acknowledge today, coming directly from higher wisdom about your power. So write that down. Write that down. I know some of you are still writing, and that's fine. In addition to our agreement with life, our contract, right? And when I say our agreement with life, it's what we are agreeing as a soul to do. Like, I am here to advocate for education. I am here to be a leader of leaders who showing them how to use power for good, right? That's my agreement. If I forget it, if I am working with people who aren't leaders, who aren't creators, who aren't influencers, if I'm spending most of my time with those people, if I have forgotten that I'm supposed to be showing them how to use power for good, and instead I just decided I was gonna make a business that is profitable at the expense of pure power or at the expense of others, then I'm breaking my agreement. It's going to be a bumpy ride, folks. And a lot of us, you know, because we're not clear, even if we have good intentions, it's a bumpy ride, bumpier than maybe need be, because we have forgotten our agreement. So please write down whatever you got about your agreement with power from that journey. Because now we want to go into our treat. And I think I'm going to introduce this part about archetypes. And we'll have a chance to share a little later, if anybody wants to, about your contract and what you've got. But I'd like to move into this part of archetypes by reminding everybody that your archetypes comprise who you are at essence. They are these vast containers of consciousness. For example, queen, wise counselor, explorer, or visionary. We all have 9 power archetypes, and learning how they can work together in synergy is the best way to honor that contract, that agreement with life. Just by the way, FYI, organizations and businesses, they have archetypes too. They have power contracts as well. They have about 3 archetypes that comprise really the soul or the essence of the business, and they have a contract, an agreement. When I was about 5 years old, I was absolutely convinced that I was cursed. And I was convinced of this because I thought that the absolute best thing in the world would be to be able to sing. I wanted to sing like an angel. I wanted to sing in such a way that I created alchemy through my voice. I had an aunt, my Aunt Roberta, who was a disco star in Europe at that time. And when she came to visit, it was a party. She would hold concerts in the living room, invite huge amounts of people. We'd have conga lines going around the yard and the pool. We'd have champagne. It was like something out of a movie. And for me at that young age, I idolized her. However, I was told that I was a very bad singer, not by her. That's a whole other story how that happened. But I was told that I was a very bad singer, that I shouldn't sing, that it was just horrible the way that I sang, that I had no talent in that area. Not only was I crestfallen, but I felt cursed because I had this burning desire to uplift people with my voice. So I blocked that pathway. And yet, I use my voice to perform in theater. As a kid, I used my voice because I was acting on television, still as a kid. And then as I grew, my voice was used to speak. It was used to win my school poetry contest. It was used to anchor the news program produced at my graduate school of journalism. It was used to host events. It was used to teach groups large and small. It was used on a call-in radio show that I hosted in LA. Okay, are y'all seeing a theme here? I know, it is very hard to see the theme. And for me, I didn't get it. It was quite obfuscated. I am a little slow, I know. Quite slow, but this is how it works. And so I'm telling the story because we never see it for ourselves. I mean, how obvious is that? But it was only when I committed to diving deeper into my archetypes and my power wheel did I clearly see, did I clearly get, oh my goodness, not only is my voice essential to me fulfilling my contract with power, but for me, the voice is an archetype and is one of my 9. And why that's important is because, as I said earlier, we're bumping around in the night, we're hitting, we're scarring ourselves up, we're ouch, oops, oh, because we don't have this high level of clarity. You know, there's like a lot of fluff. I mean, I kind of was doing it. It wasn't that I wasn't using my voice at all, but there is a level about 1,000% more powerful that has to do with my relationship to my voice that I was not using, that was laying fallow. Where's it lying fallow? I don't know. I never understood that 3rd grade lesson, lying. Anyway, you guys get it. When we connect into archetypes at the level I'm speaking about, in a non-cliched way, you really are able to be who you're meant, do what you're meant, and you're doing it plugged in to source. Take a breath. I would like to interview and introduce, before we interview, my dear friend, the wonderful, the fantastic, the beautiful, where is she? The often imitated but never duplicated Miss Stephanie Beebe, founder of Inflow CEO. I would love, before we unveil your archetype, if you, anything you want to say to introduce yourself, or if you want to share anything that you've gotten thus far from our work together today.
Oh, I was just going to say today, because I've gotten a lot out of you. Always.
No, people have things to do, Stephanie.
I think that, yeah, I think the most right. I think the most powerful thing was definitely when you had us stand up and like embody that. I was like, oh, I got to turn the video off. And then you had us walk through this whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to turn the video on. And it was this whole idea of like being comfortable, being completely without thinking about it. So there was definitely something about being visible without being approved, and how that came really into like what stops me from embodying my power. So that was really big. Yeah. I turned it back on. I was proud of myself. Halfway through, it took me a second, but I did it. And you're like, step in just 10% more. I'm like, they're like, turn the video on. I'm like, no. And I'm like having this whole dialogue.
Oh, I love it. I love pacing things in exercises and in journeys, because there's a negotiation going on. right?
Totally.
With anybody who relates to me, we are wily negotiators. And we put our hands on our hips and negotiate with spirit. Well, how much more? Well, how long should the video be on? Well, how visible exactly am I supposed to be? I mean, aren't I visible enough? Okay, like 1% more, 5, 10%. Let's get clear about this. We are always negotiating. So I found years ago, if I showed people how to negotiate, which is like clearly what they're already doing, but how to do it consciously, things opened up faster. If you say, oh, just 10% more, okay, I'm willing to do that. Because we're almost never willing, and sometimes it's not safe yet. We're not ready yet for the 100%. But if we say, okay, 10%, 20%, I can handle that. I could do that. Because as you and I have discussed many times, power is extremely SCARY.
It can be. It's stretching. I've shifted it to stretching, right? It's very stretching.
But for what we have discussed it with people in general, like, you know, the question, why do people run away from Dena? Well, Dena, let's talk about how power can be, you know, like, So yeah, that really works. I want to, oh, where's my sound? I brought sound. I want to get to the unveiling. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Yesterday, I was chatting with Stephanie and I mentioned one of her archetypes, but I was willing to mention it and it wasn't cheating because I said, but I'm not going to talk about that one tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to unmask and unveil and it'll be surprised. So yesterday, I talked to her about being a warrior. How many of you, just give a thumbs up or raise your hand, see that in her? She's a light warrior, Light, not Lite. Yeah, okay, I see it. Yeah. Can you see that? She's a warrior. And she's a warrior for the light. And this is not her first time at the rodeo. So that would go on her power. Oh, let me show this. Hold on. Let me show. That would go on her archetype wheel. I'll send you one of these, Stephanie, if you didn't get it in the email. This one is mine partially filled out, and it has your 9. It has 9 slots for your 9 archetypes. But it's back to you. So in one of those slots, if we were gonna take a time, and we were gonna fill out your whole one, you'd have warrior in that, and specifically it'd be a warrior of the light. That would be the niche, if you will. And then the one I wanted to bring to you today, and I think it's important for where you are right now in your life, is you are a galactic ambassador. You are I want you to choose the words that resonate the most for you, but it's because my thing is too long. It's like people that give their kids 6 names. Mita Kakita, you know, because you're really a royal galactic ambassador counselor who needs to be part of a council. So however you want to shorthand that, be my guest. But you are meant to be, you are designed to be part of a team, in a group that is working together, dedicated to the light. Now, this might be a constant team, like, superheroes. There's 6 of them or 8 of them, and they work together and they go out and they fight the bad guys. Or it could be that you're part of different teams that fit this bill. But here are the qualities that this team or teams must have. People who can share power. This is the ultimate thing for you. people who can share power. Right?
Yes.
People who can collaborate. People with whom you have synergy. So at your best, you're going to be at your best with people who share the values about collaboration and synergy and sharing power, even though you can help anyone, you can work with anyone. But at your best, in your ultimate zone, it's like just singing when you can be with people who are able to trust the synergy of mutual collaboration, where I'm in my zone, you're in your zone, she's in her zone, he's in his zone, and we can trust each other to do our genius.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to be, and part of your power contract is contributing to people and projects, making a difference, and you know that, but even more precise, you want to be a part of the change towards this collaboration, this sharing of power, this dedication to higher light, to higher wisdom, because you're sick of the BS, right?
Yes.
And all the stuff that you see happening, the pain and the damage in the world that is avoidable and that is so beyond basic in terms of avoidable, it hurts your heart, actually, a lot. You don't even understand it. That's the truth. Honestly, you can't even, and it's probably very good, but you can't even get your understanding around a lot of things that you see happening. It's, you know, it's like shock and trauma happens to you. Boom, boom, boom. Why? I don't get it. How? Why? But the answer lies in your agreement with power and in your archetypes, and specifically in this one, because you're part of the answer. And I don't say that to put a weight on you at all, or, you know, would do it alone. It's not, it's the opposite. But as you click into the necessity of you playing bigger in whatever way that means for you, then it actually gets easier because there are more people who can help you and work with you. Does this all make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Very powerful.
And what I want to tell you is that even though we're not doing business today, I thought I would mention that one of the archetypes for your business purpose is transmission. And again, it fits so beautifully with your who you are in as a person, because it's about transmission of higher light and higher light wisdom. That's really one of the main archetypes that exists in your business. So, questions, comments from you?
No, I mean, my intention was to embody the transmission. And I think I'm sitting in that. So pretty powerful stuff. I will definitely digest this and reflect it back to you in terms of a testimonial, because I think this work is so incredibly powerful. Yeah, I mean, I just have chills running down my spine and my whole body's on fire, and it's all good.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I just love you so much.
I love you.
You're so precious.
Thank you.
Okay, take a breath, everybody. You've got one of these. If you printed it out, if you didn't, it's no worries. But I'd love to hear from anybody else. If you want to share briefly something you got from your contract with Power, like what that's about, your agreement. If during the time that I was speaking with Stephanie, you got some information around an archetype of yours that you are absolutely certain of, or that you're questioning, and if it's a question, you can write it on the side of your power wheel. Free for all in the last few minutes. Free for all. Just unmute and start talking.
Dena, what I got when you asked, like, what do I know? What I know is, it just, all I heard was, it starts with me. And I guess I'm asking for your reflection on that, because it seems like a little obvious. Like, did I go deep enough, or is that just perfect? Because really my journey has been about like me owning my power.
Yes, yes, yes. And how in the world can one have a successful, powerful life and successful agreement with power if one says my life effing sucks
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in the wrong life?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't, because you're busy going to court, the court of the universe, on a daily basis with your petition saying, y'all put me in the wrong body, y'all put me in the wrong life, and I'm pissed about it. You're not out there living the life. You're trying to get out of it, backpedaling, right? So if it all starts with you, then it starts with you admitting, acknowledging, and appreciating that this life is not a mistake. You are not a mistake. Your soul in this body is not a mistake. And that you do have an agreement with power that's worthy and valuable, even if it is not on the cover of In Style magazine.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect. Oh, anybody else? Comments, questions, archetypes? Yeah, just speak up. Just
So, well, let me see. I was asking about what my agreement to life was, and it's to change healthcare. And then one of the things I was really wanting to get out of this session was, what are the things that are stopping me from getting there? Because I feel like there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that came up this time around was actually fear of saying something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like if a lot of people are listening to me, and what if I didn't know what I was talking about, or I said something wrong, and then maybe I affect other people in a negative way. So I know things I say are powerful, but I think then because of that, I don't want it to go the wrong way. So that was one thing. And then the other was not trusting my emotions, like maybe how I will react or feel to certain people. Maybe I haven't done enough work on that.
Yeah.
And also I feel burden, overwhelm, and responsibility. So that's a lot.
Well, would you like my feedback on the one word that encapsulates it all? Kind of like the ring to end all rings, the word to, yes?
Yeah.
You actually said it because you're that smart. It's trust. Our friend trust. There is a difference between potential and capacity. There's a difference between when we hear the call to do something and we have the capacity and the confidence, the inner confidence to do it, to stand in that spotlight and do it. And so the journey for you is, you also pointed it out, it's a practice. It's practicing and doing the work so that you are able to trust not your own understanding or your ego or that you have to be perfect, but you trust that you're plugged in, you're clear enough, you're plugged in to your wisdom and to higher wisdom, and that when you speak, when you share in the spotlight, that you're doing so from a place of positive intention and clarity, and that even if people don't approve of you or don't understand, that you have the resilience to withstand it so that it doesn't take you down. It doesn't lead you to be so ashamed you can't continue. It doesn't ruin your business. It doesn't do any of those things. It doesn't ruin your life, in other words. That's so when I say trust, trust is something that has to be built. It's like exercising at the gym. Does this make sense?
So practice trusting my intuition.
I think that's a great place to start. Yeah, Stephanie is doing this. Yeah, practicing, doing practices. I think I would say it this way. Making sure that you're doing practices that are every day allowing you to align and trust more and more, because that builds that inner stamina and strength, and it's also reduces the amount of running around and chaos, because when we're running around, we're doing that because we haven't gotten really aligned and clear on what is most productive, where's most important to spend our time, right? Yeah, we're trying to manage all these things, but there's a step that comes before that, and that is that practice and practices that keep us, snap us back into alignment, keep us plugged into source, and keep building the trust. I have so much more trust now today in my intuition, for example, than I did when I created the Essential Woman many, many years ago. Now, I was using my intuition then, just kind of like how I was describing using my voice. I was using my intuition. I used all kinds of intuitive guidance to create and build that class and that movement. But I did not trust it as much as I do now. It is like my trust in it is unshakable at this point. Back then, I would still question, oh, should I say this? Right? Oh, maybe I won't say that. Like there was a lot more hesitation that isn't there now. So I hope that gives you some help. Does that?
Are there certain exercises to do? Like
Yeah, we can speak about
just keep asking. Okay.
Yeah, we can speak about it later, because I think there are some wonderful exercises for that. But the concept, do you understand the concept, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Anybody else? We got about 3 minutes.
I can, I had made a note to myself about an archetype, which was the outsider, but I also wrote, but not as a victim, because it's like I've been an outsider my whole life, but that's always been a bad thing. But maybe looking at it more from the perspective of, because I'm an outsider and I'm not like in the middle of stuff, I have a different perspective, so I can see more or different stuff that people who are in it can't see.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's wonderful. Wolfgang Puck and David Chang of Mama Fuko, two amazing world-renowned chefs. They were having a conversation recently, and they were talking about how they're both outsiders. David looks at Wolfgang and says, wow, I feel like I'm a Korean American version of you, because I'm an outsider, I'm an upstart. People don't like the fact that I don't hold authenticity sacrosanct. I do fusion, I create my own thing. I don't stick to the canon, like this is this kind of food and this is that kind of food. It's a marvelous conversation, and it speaks exactly to what you're talking about, because how else do we get innovative ideas, whether it's a California version of pizza, right, in the 80s with Wolf. I mean, he revolutionized cuisine with that one thing, and then look where he is now. But with creating a California pizza, wow. And he did it because he was an outsider. And you know what he said? He said, if I was Italian, I never could have done it.
Okay, good. Yeah, right? I like that.
He said, but I'm not. And so and then I'm an immigrant to America on top of it. So outsider on outsider, bam. The future speaks through you. Okay, we are going to wrap up. If I have anybody has any last comments, acknowledgement for yourself, appreciation?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My biggest comment is to thank you, Dena, for being your brilliant, powerful, glorious, gorgeous self. And I am just so inspired by how you show up in the world. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, thank you. And it is my pleasure to have been with you today. Thanks for taking the adventure and the ride. I'd love to hear more about how this unfolds for you as you dive in and chew on the wisdom and the insight from today. I do plan to send a follow-up email. I have a little gift of a sound bath and alchemical meditation in that email, as well as some kind of final points of guidance of how to work with some of these things that we've talked about today. And that sound bath I'm sharing because after you do something like this in the next few days, it's really wonderful to turn everything off and lay down and receive the sounds, because I find that they help us really integrate much more easily. So you can look out for that. And I do have one announcement. If you are watching the recording, in April, I have not announced this yet, but in April, I have decided to open up the Unlock Your Pure Power course. Once again, the last time I opened it was a year ago. And this is where you are going to create a power goal. You're going to learn the 6 principles of pure power. You're going to meet the sub-personas, as some of you talked about today, that do not want, absolutely no, for you to live your contract with power or to reach your power goal, and really get out of the way of you in power so that you clarify, accelerate. You do so in a supportive group so that you don't have isolation syndrome and you don't figure it out on your own. So if that is something that is calling you, and or you know that now is the time for something and that I am your guide, there will be a link with this video, and you can go to that link and get on the list to apply to speak with me to see what might be right for you, because you know whether it is the time and whether I am the guide at this time for what you need. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for being here today, for your love and patience. I appreciate each of you so much. You are spectacularly powerful. So here's to using our power for good. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everybody, and lots of love.